Hey everybody, welcome back. Great to see you here again at the Red Barn, where, if you're new to the channel, we do nothing but work on hot-rodded 914s. We've got an LS3 swap 914, and this episode, we're back on the wiring for our Ferrari 360 swapped 914. Last episode, I got a bunch of stuff done on the new tunnel base, and let's see if I can wrap that up enough so that I can do what I said I was going to do, which is, now that I know where all the hardware is going to be, I need to get this electrical run, and I need to make them the right lengths and all that good stuff, so I'm not doing that stuff over again. So let's get back on the wiring. Hope you enjoy. Okay, mystery solved. This was not a gift from one of my loyal fans. A buddy of mine who had shipped some stuff here, some Kevlar sheet. I did a repair for him on his rally car. He had some damage done, rally car, and he asked me to do a composite repair on one of his both of his rocker panels. Anyway, he has a Ferrari 430 as well, and he texts me this morning and says, "Hey, did you get a package? I forgot to change the shipping address the last time I ordered something." So it's not a gift. It was a misship. Anyway, so I don't have to incorporate that into my build, and that's pretty funny. Anyway, that mystery is solved. So now let's get on to the other stuff. One of the questions I got from the last episode was, when I cut this out and made the new panel, the question was, why didn't I cut out the old panel and repair it and put it back in? And the answer is that when you bend metal, within reason, that is, if you just, tweak it a little bit, you're not changing, you're not stretching the material. But what the dent, that dent that this thing had right here, here's the picture of it, that dent deformed that radius. And by the time I would have tried to straighten it and make it look right and weld it back in and all that good stuff, I'm way better off, at least for me, I'm better off just making a new piece and putting it in. So I thought that was a good question, though, because I think there are times where, if the piece is otherwise really complex and you're just repairing part of it, but you have to take it out of the car to do so, that might be a great approach. But for something this simple, it was way faster to just cut it out, bend the piece up with the right radius, and stitch it back in there. But again, thanks for that question. All right, on to next steps for this center tunnel console, whatever we want to call it. And you can see here, I've gone to the trouble of coming up with a clamping system and building this outer rail, and I was thinking I was going to stitch this all in and have essentially another longitudinal in the center of the car. And then I realized, this motor has, 275 pound-feet of torque, where the LS has got that engine dynoed at 464 pound-feet. And the LS car has got a less strong tunnel base than this one. And since this car is going to get door bars and some other chassis stiffening, I'm not going to put that in there. I've decided that I'm just going to make a shifter mount, and not having this rail means I have all kinds of freedom to shape the console and not worry about having stuff get in the way or whatnot. So a little bit of work to prove to myself that I really don't like this. So out it's going to come, and I'm just going to go to work now on coming up with a shifter mount that attaches to this thing. I think it's going to just be a permanent shifter mount. So let me get working on that. Okay, now you get the idea of what's going to happen. You can see I've got the brake and clutch line back in here, and I have these little line clamps. These are from a company called Notchhead, and Summit Racing, I'm sure other places carry it, but they make a bunch of different sizes. These are for, 3/8, these are 3/16, but you can see what happens is once those get secured down, they're really nice little clamps to hold these lines in place. So I got a couple of stations. I fabbed up that little cross brace. Slightly different orientation, slightly different size material, but I decided that's what I wanted to do there. And then I'm repurposing one of the brackets that I made. That's not in the place it's going to be. It turns out that I had sourced these stainless steel lines that are going to run over the master cylinders. And you can see, if I get this out of the way, that by the time I route them where I want them, I'm going to end up shortening both the clutch and the brake line. and moving that station back there. So I got to do that, but no big deal. I can reuse everything. I just have to cut it off and put a different flare, put a flare in a different location. But there is the basis of the tunnel. And then what's going to happen with the shifter, pay no attention to these oddball pieces, but I've got where I want the rear mount, this rear fastening point, where I want it. And what I've decided I'm going to do is I've got these bosses, these little bungs, and this is going to be much higher. Well, much higher, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher. But I'm just going to make some arms that weld to the inside of this and come out and grab one of these on each side. And then this is just a placeholder, but same thing here. So I'll have just 4 arms that come out, because what's nice about that is I can use this, which I know works, and it's already made, so why not reuse it? It'll still allow me to tilt if I feel like it. But what it also means is if I simply unbolt it, I can take this piece out and I'll have a completely open tunnel for doing things like what I'm doing here, setting in stuff, servicing these lines if I ever need to, you know, getting to the brake and clutch pressure switches and things like that. So now that I know that's what I'm going to do, I can get back to putting the wiring back in and finalizing the routing of all that and getting that all tied in. And there's some fun stuff going on with the steering column and the 911 ignition switch setup that I'm going to use that you'll see here in just a second. That is a 914.6 ignition switch mounting location that gets stitched into the dash panel of the 914. So I'm going to get this grafted into the dash for the Ferrari car so that I can start the wiring up to the actual ignition switch that's going to be used in the car. So yay. Big thanks to our friends at Restoration Design for these fabulous pieces. And now, finally, we are back to the exciting stuff of wiring. And here's the latest. So with the tunnel base in there, pay no attention to the wires and pay no attention to the wires. The only thing I'm worried about right now is how everything clears. And I've already fit the seat, and you can see here, the seat rails don't come back much past here. So this is all protected. But what I do have to do is I have to route them well behind everything, because the seat kind of sits here. But in any case, this is how this is all going to work. There'll be a pass-through in the console cover that allows the wires to get in there. And then this bundle of wires is everything that goes up sort of into the console area, meaning, you know, power window switches, cruise control buttons, things like that. And then all these wires, which are just messy up here, are all the things that have to go up to the inside the dashboard area for switchgear, ignition, headlights. This is some of the bigger 10 amp stuff that runs up to the front of the car, horn, turn signals, things like that. And the PMU is just sitting there for right now. I think I can make it work inside the tunnel, so that'll be hidden. But right now, all I want to do is sort of tidy up this area, because you can see as I start figuring out what goes where, I have to shape, if you will, I have to shape the wiring. So where you tape it, and those of you that have been watching all along know that I'm securing this with Kapton tape. This is this very thin, leaves no residue when you take it off, and so you can wrap it and put sheathing over it, and it works out just great. And as far as sheathing goes, this is not going to get DR25. It's probably just going to get some of this, you know, nylon, split nylon stuff, which is just fine because it's not going to take any abuse being inside the car. It doesn't have, you know, abrasion stuff. It doesn't have heat to deal with or anything like that. So that'll get tidied up. But you can see as this stuff gets sheathed, all those wires we started with, not that bad. I mentioned this piece that came in from Restoration Design. This is the 914.6 left-hand side ignition key position, and this gets stitched into the dash approximately here. But what this does is this supports the 911 ignition switch. And we all know about the Ferrari tax that I've been paying for some of the Ferrari parts. This is a good example of the Porsche tax. This was just under $1,000 for a new one of these. Now I had a used one that one of my buddies, acquaintance buddies on 914 World sent me because it didn't have a key. And I went and had a key made, and it was awesome, and it was going to be great and all that other stuff. But as it turns out, it was unreliable getting to the start position, right? You know, when you click it into the start position and let it spring back, it wouldn't always let it go to start. Can't have that. So the only other option, you know, you buy another used one and you're still gambling. So this is brand spanking new. Everything's super duper awesome. But yeah, the $1,000 ignition switch. This is the 914, or this is actually a 911 steering column. But here you can see this is where this goes. So that's how that works. And you can see that when this steering column is put in the car, everything sits about like that. And this piece then obviously gets stitched in there. So it's kind of it's all got to kind of happen at the same time. And since this came out of the 911, you can see that there's no mount. So I've cut off the actual mount that goes to the 914 chassis, and this has got to get positioned and rotated correctly. So this all kind of has to happen at the same time. But here you can see how this all works. So kind of a wacky setup, but we will have a left-hand ignition, locking steering column, and a cool look. So anyway, that I want to get done so that I can wire up to this switch. And I've got the harness for that. And I don't need all these, so I got to go through and figure out what goes on when and all that. But this I want to get done and mounted before I bother with the wiring, because I need to know where this stuff's going to end up. So I'm going to go to work on that too. And here you can see I've got the 911 steering column fixtured up on the table, and I've got this is the 914 mounting bracket that's been cut off of a 914 steering column. And this needs to get welded on here in the right position. So what I've done is I just put some Dykem on there and fit everything in the car and scribed where that needs to be. And if you're asking yourself, why are there grinder marks on there to where you've removed, clearly you tacked something on there and you removed it. Well, look at the bolt pattern. Let me see if I can do that. Look at the bolt pattern on this thing. Notice how the front left hole or lower left hole is closer to the edge than the lower right hole. Yeah, this is not a symmetric piece relative to the straight line that steering column is going to be bolted to. And of course, what did I do? I put it on the car and welded it on like that and went to fit it back in. And I'm like, why won't this thing go in? Is there any possibility? And then I looked at it and went, okay, you learn something every day. So it has to go on like that. And the good news is I can still see my scribe line on there. So now I will retack that thing on there and get it in the car. And in case you're wondering, why do I fixture this thing? It's because the 911 has, the steering column has the wiper controls and the turn signal switches that bolt to this. And so this needs to be level in the car, level to how this mounts to the chassis. And so I measured the height or the level between two flats here, and now I'm just duplicating it here. It happens to be 0.4 of a degree. So right there is where I'm going to tack this thing, and I am going to tack it. It was only tacked before, so I'll tack it, fit it, make sure everything looks good. And once everything's nailed down and I know it's correct, then I can come back and final weld it. So it's just going to get a tack on either side of that bracket for right now. Well, you can see how relatively easy it is to get a 914 dash in. And there are 4 studs that locate in holes in the chassis. And there are a couple of brackets here that line up with some other fasteners on both sides. But now you can see what's going on. There is the left-hand ignition switch, and now you get an idea of what has to happen here, right? That's got to get stitched in the right place. Now, this is not stock, right? So I messed with this dash for some reason. I can't remember. It was probably in the LS car at one point, or who knows what. So I have to determine where I want my switchgear to go and what I want to have. So headlights, you know, hazards, windshield wipers are on the stalks here, or on the switches here. So yeah, I just got to work that out and then stitch this in, and this becomes the mount for the key or the ignition switch body that's outboard here. And there's a little bit of room here to you know, rotate this in and out to handle the differences in the chassis, you know, measurement variations. But there you go. One, it's still just tacked, but that's one 911 steering column. And a little bit of a lesson learned on the pattern for that, that mount. Who knew? And the advantage of having been messing with 914s for, I don't know, coming up on a decade, is you have multiple parts lying around in the parts stash. So I had 3 additional dashes, and you can see that now with everything set up, I have the left-hand ignition switch, and it's all but a perfect location right through the factory hole in the dash. And I have to confess, I think that's the fog light hole. I can't remember, but you can see that that is going to work out just perfectly. And you know, steering column locks, and then one click away and we're good to go. So we have ourselves a 911 steering column and left-hand ignition switch. Pardon the mess. And I needed a couple of more parts, so a quick order with Pelican, and I ended up with a Momo steering hub. And there's some magical bushings and springs and stuff that go between the hub and the steering column itself. I don't know if you noticed in earlier videos, but that steering shaft just floats, and there's this special bushing and spring that takes care of all that slop. And now this thing's completely locked down. Now, I don't have a Momo wheel, so the best I have is this old Race Mark, and the bolt pender's not quite the same, but I just wanted to put it on there because it's about the same dish as a Momo. So there I am with the shifter right in line with the steering wheel. So ergonomically we're all good. I need to clean up these switches because they don't do the return thing. You know, if I do the turn signal deal, and then you can hear it clicking, but you can see that it's a little bit sticky in there. So I've got some contact cleaner and some other stuff. I want to try to free all that stuff up so it returns a little better. And then now I got to chase down all the functions so that I have, you know, I got high beam flash, I got high beam, low beam in there. And the 914 only has a 2-speed wiper motor. The 911s had a 3-speed, but because of the way that this ECU works, I can do what's called pulse width modulation, PWM, and I can vary the voltage that goes to the motor. So I can simply tell the positions. I could set one of those positions to say, oh, that's the intermittent position. And then I can have a high speed and a low speed and a high speed as well. So I still have, that's programming within the ECU and the power management unit, but I'll probably just run a 2-speed washer, or excuse me, a 2-speed wiper motor, stock 914 wiper motor. Because it's not like I drive the thing in the rain a lot. But we'll see. Maybe I'll chase down a 3-speed motor too. Well, you know, TBD. All stuff that doesn't matter right now. But now, ignition switch is in place so I can do the wiring. These switches are in place. Not that I need them to get the car started, but now I know about all these wire runs I have to run. And I can't imagine that you would find running of wires very exciting. So I spent the last few hours just getting everything pulled into the basic harness. So this is everything that has to go to the front of the car, and any breakouts along the way, like this is the reverse switch wiring, and this is the brake pressure and clutch, well, the brake switch and the clutch switch. And then this is all a bunch of stuff that has to go to the front of the car. As I mentioned earlier, this is power stuff to light, headlights, turn signals, horn, etc. And then the other stuff's going to break out and run up under the dash for all the switch gear and things like that. So you can see it's pretty tidy. This is the PMU. It'll get mounted somewhere else. But, you know, you can see I'm just trying to group things together. And, you know, the breakouts, it'll get sheathed and all that good stuff. But, you know, here's the drive-by wire pedal connection I'll put back together. And one thing you might find interesting, I mentioned this before, but I'll call it out again. You can see in this example, here's the reverse switch wiring. And you might say, wait a second, neither one of those is red. And that would mean, how are you going to get power to your reverse switch? Well, what this is this is the ECU and the power management unit that's built into it, or I could do it through that power management unit. But what this is this is a signal wire that I've told the ECU is the reverse switch, and this is signal ground. And so what I'll do, and here's the reverse switch, right? I'll just wire this up. And what happens is when I put the car in reverse, when the ECU sees this signal wire go to ground, it just lets it know that that's what's happened. But then I can program the ECU to say, when the signal wire goes to ground, turn on the reverse lights. And it tells another circuit, which is a 12-volt high amp circuit, light up the reverse light. So all of the switch gear, wipers, headlights, all that good stuff, is all done without having a high voltage, 12 volts, hot, going to the switch. It's just a signal and a signal ground. So same thing, turn signals, windshield wipers, all that. It just says, oh, I see this particular thing has gone to ground, and so what do you want me to do? Turn on the windshield wipers on low speed, turn on the headlights, turn on the brights, flash the brights, so I can have all the same functions with virtually no voltage running through any of my switches, which is kind of cool. And same thing with the ignition switch, right? When the key gets turned on, it's not going to have 12 volts running to it. Like you look at some of these, you probably can't see it from here, but you can see there's some big deal 25 amp looking, or maybe more, big deal wires that are part of the ignition switch and all that. And I don't need any of that stuff. I need the connection, but all I need is for the key to say I'm on, and the ECU will say, okay, send 12 volts somewhere that it needs it. So it's kind of cool. I can run light gauge wire everywhere, and I don't have to worry about the switch getting hot or any of the stuff that goes on with factory parts. So anyway, there is the wiring for this episode. And, the tunnel got done, the wiring is getting close. Now I can actually route stuff and start making the key connections to get this thing fired. So with that, I'm going to call it for this episode. I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, and everybody take care. We'll talk to you all again real soon. Bye-bye.